Hello and welcome back to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I have a wonderful guest with me today. Her name is Debby Krusz, also known as Debby Krusz. She is a certified life meditation and energy healing coach, certified dream manager coach, business consultant, dream pollinator, and multi-published author. She is also a survivor of crushed dreams and an expert in dream rescue. After climbing the corporate ladder and working as the COO of a hospital, Debby realized her work was not in alignment with her beliefs and values, causing her to follow a different life path. She now helps others ignite the fire within them to get to their dreams. Debby, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl. I appreciate you having me on.
It's really an honor to talk to you. And I am really curious to hear a little bit more about your story of how you went from being a COO, which to me would be like, wow, she climbed the corporate ladder. She has it all. That's what everybody wants to do with their life, but not so much.
No, I mean, I was sold that dream too of, oh my gosh, you could do it all. And, the world is open to you. And you're like, yay, that's great. But at the same time, it wasn't my path. It was never my path. It was a dream that everybody around me felt for me. And I'm like, well, I must be wrong because I want something else. And I couldn't really 100% identify it. And anything that I felt was my calling. I was shunned down of, no, that's not a job, or just, that's not a thing. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm wrong. And I went through the motions of, graduating school, going to grad school, getting a job right out of college. And I just always felt in every job I had that there was something missing. And then again, you go to the people around you and you're like, I know this is supposed to be great, but it's not great. Oh, no, keep going up. You can do it. You can make it all the way up the ladder. And I'm like, yay, I'm here and this sucks.
That 30,000 foot view, right? You're looking down and going, it's a long way to fall, but I sure wish that I could.
Yes, that's wonderful. I love how you said that. That is so true, where, you know what you're capable of, what you can accomplish, but you're accomplishing something that doesn't mean anything to you. So falling feels like a feeling. So it would feel good to fall. It would feel good to just like, what happens if I pressed on this window and just jumped out? Don't recommend that for anybody.
Right.
But, I understand what that feels like to be in that space of, when you hear about, oh my gosh, a leader or somebody that has all this money or has made all their goals and dreams, how they disappear, let's just say, and make a choice that for us, we don't understand. And when you're in that spot, you're like, I get it. I completely know what that feels like. And I actually, in my heart, felt, if I stay here, I will be dead. I will be dead in 6 months. And it's not that I was going to jump out a window. I didn't feel that way at all. I felt that my body was mad at me and my mind was like, I don't like you either. And and I'm like, my whole internal self was fighting with me. And I'm like, it's either going to rebel against me and I'm going to have a heart attack or, some major illness that's just going to wipe me out. Or I was afraid, I was so distracted that I was going to get into an accident, or it was very, very loud and consuming. And I just knew that I wasn't in the right place. So I do a lot. I rely on a lot of prayer and a lot of meditation. And I just was like, God, this isn't what I thought it was. And I know in my heart, this is not what you want for me. And all those other things that people were like, you shouldn't, that's not a job. That's not a thing. You don't make money. That's not a career. There's not a future. I was like, I wasn't listening. I was listening to all the wrong people tell me what I should do. And I just heard a voice very loud and distinct say, you need to leave and you need to start writing. And I'm like, but I'm not a writer. And it was like, well, just give it a try. Like, what do you have to lose? And I looked at my life and I was like, the money in my bank account seemed really nice, but at the same time, I didn't like how people were treating me because I was making money and I had a fancy title that wasn't really real either. It was, holding it for somebody that left and giving it to somebody else because I wasn't going to stay there. I wasn't in that space for a long time. It was a very short-lived thing. Could I have had the opportunity to stay? Yes, but I was like, no, the answer is no. So it all sort of happened at the same time of like, are you staying or are you going? And I'm like, I'm going. And it was at the same time when God was listening to me, was answering me, and I was finally listening. Oh, you got to leave. So I decided to not stay at all, which made no sense to anybody, right? And I wrote 3 books in 9 months, and I didn't really know what I was. It didn't come to, I know that feels like a lot of people are like, what? How do you do that? But when I had so much emotion in me and I was driven to do it, I wrote a lot and I had to throw away so much of what I wrote because it had no rhyme or reason. But I had an editor that I was working with that put me on a focus of like, just stick to this outline. She's like, that voice that you're talking from is an attention grabber, and you're definitely going to get your audience just by being genuine of telling this story. And although they're all fiction novels, they're all pieces of my journey of spirituality, of things that everybody couldn't understand. And I was always in a disconnect because no one could see the things that I was seeing or hear the things that I was hearing that I know were messages from above. And so it really got me to understand that I was being called in a different direction, but the world tells you that doesn't exist. Or you have to follow this path and it's only this path and money's the answer to everything. And when you get to a place of I don't have any money and you have a lot of choices to make. You could drown in it or you can understand what it's about. And I went from 2 extremes through many, through my whole life and career, went through moments of like, okay, I make money and it gets me by and I'm happy. I'm doing all the things I want to do and I'm putting money in the bank every month. And I was fine. Like I was okay there. And the more money I made, I felt just as bad with a lot of money as I did when I didn't have a lot of money. So it really taught me the balance of where you are content and you're not chasing dollars because you think that's the answer, because chasing dollars is never the answer. And the joyful times you have when you can appreciate everything you have. Or my favorite lesson that my parents always instilled in me was, holidays at my grandmother's house, where my mom grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment and there was 4 kids, and we would have all 4 families at my grandma's house, like snack tables, any kind of table you could put together. And everybody was like, this is the greatest. Like there's nobody cared about the space. Nobody cared about a pretty ornament on the table. It was like, we're having good food and everybody's here together and everybody's having fun. And then you think like, oh, I'm told by life that I have to have this huge house, to have this huge table and all these fancy things. And it's not the same. It's just not the same. So when you learn what abundance really means and feels like, it changes who you are. So I'm grateful for that part of my journey. So with my books, I didn't really understand what I was supposed to do with them. I mean, they're published and they're out there, and I didn't know the marketing side of it, which I've learned since then. But they all had a recurring theme of you are loved, you're here on a crazy journey, you have a soul purpose, and it always comes together, and you're always at the right place at the right time. And there's no coincidence of somebody in your life, and how we are all connected for a reason. So it goes through, my first two books go through 3 life cycles of a whole family, and, forgiveness and love, and why did I ever know that person or have feelings for that person, and just know that there was all these love and connections, and everybody's supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
So once I realized that, I knew I needed to do more. So I know I wanted to help people, because if I knew how to get myself through the highs and lows of not only my career, but relationships, and, where you stand in this world, I looked back at my career and saw what I really loved. And what I really loved is building teams and building people that thought that they didn't belong, or thought that they weren't part of something. So I always looked at that level of people that were like not performing, not giving their potential, showing up late, having to leave early, and being like, what's wrong here? Like, why are they not performing? And looking at what is the company we could provide, and what we could provide, and what we weren't providing, and how to get people out of that space. And so I learned that one of my gifts is to be able to look at people and really see their potential. So I was taking groups of people at this place, and giving them stronger leadership and extra tools, which were available to everybody. But I wanted to take care of the people that everybody sort of gave up on, and they gave up on themselves. And it was like, in 3 months, I'm going to fire this guy, and that's going to break my heart. We need to fix this. So I took these people, and I was like, you got a year, and I know you all have potential, and you all can get to the next thing. And putting a team on it to just focus on getting them out of this space, and working one-on-one with them, and realizing some people's skills were just not at the job. Their skills were in a different place. And it's like, well, we can get you in that place. And just being able to move these pieces, and people and these employees feeling so grateful. All of a sudden they're showing up early, they're doing extra work, they are excited to come there. They all of a sudden are talking about, oh my gosh, my relationship improved with my spouse, I can't wait to go to my kids' soccer game. All these things that hindered them because they weren't appreciated where they were changing. And it became contagious. And getting these people to the next level, I looked at that and realized in under a 4-year span, I had promoted or got people to what their next level is, not what we are telling them the next level is, over 550 people.
Wow.
So I knew that there was like a correlation of, I was writing these books for a reason, and it all poured out from my heart. I did good work that really I dismissed, because I felt like, because it didn't get me faster to the corporate ladder, that I was doing something wrong. But at the same time, I never took the time to congratulate myself along my trail of good work that I had done. I always just criticized myself and said, you didn't do good enough because you didn't get the right dollars, and you weren't moving up fast. And I just incorporated it all together of, I can take everything that I've learned and who I am, and stop fighting to be a spiritual person, when that is the attraction of me, of my spirituality, of my relationship with God, being able to touch hearts through my writing, but also being able to touch hearts by working with people one-on-one. And that is how I built the Dream Pollination program, which it comes from the origination of my name, which is Devorah in Hebrew, and it means the bee seeker. And bees are just so special, because it's impossible really for them to exist. They do impossible things. All they want is for you to be happy, to be extremely successful, and their belief is, or I decided their belief is that if everything around you is beautiful and wonderful, and we can give you nourishment from, pollinating everything around you, then you can be happy and you can be successful, because happy people just it's just beautiful to be around. So I always yell at my friends and family and anybody whenever they have a bee comes near them, they're like, the first thing they want to do is like swat them. That's like our reaction. And there's such that misconception of, oh, I'm going to get stung. And yes, I know that there's people that have horrible reactions,
Right.
and I get that, right? Fear. But they think about it and change it, of understand they can only see beauty. So if they're coming near you, it's because they could see the beauty in you. They don't want to sting you unless you antagonize them. They just are like, I want to be around that. And they want you to know that they're with you and that they're supporting you. And, I feel like that's what my goal is. If that's my name, and I feel that pull in what's in my heart, and I've learned how to uncrush myself and get to my dreams. And actually, one of my biggest dreams just is in the process of coming true. But so I just want to help people do it. And I have a really realistic program and approach for individuals that just want the best for themselves. And I always, say, let's just start looking at your career and where you are, because we all have a career, even if you think even if you're like, well, I don't have a job, but, or I know a lot of people that I'm around with are moms that are like, but I'm not working. I'm like, but you're a mom, that's a career. You don't have a job right now. That's what your career is not having a job and figuring out what your next job is. Or you're in a job that you're miserable at and you were always in the wrong place, but there's the fear, there's a fear, there's a fear, there's the money, there's I'm too old, I'm not in the great health. So taking care of all of those pieces to make you comfortable of, this isn't the right job for me, but I'm working on now what my dream is, and to get there. I know that I've always wanted to be in good health, but I never do it because everything else is miserable and weighs me down. And getting the finances are always the top of, I can't afford to leave this job. And once again, it's not how much you make, it's what you do with what you make. And there's so many ways to get yourself out of debt, to get yourself into great savings programs. There's so many good options and opportunities for you out there. And once you can get yourself financially in a good place, you'll see how everything else opens up. So it's just like one blossom after one blossom after one blossom, and then you see clearly, and then you can work yourself into what your dream looks like. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a career. I just always think starting with where you feel and look at your career helps, and then where your relationships help, and you look better and you feel better. And it's just a beautiful process, and I make it as real as possible, because I just want as many people to be happy. And if we have a happy group of people, we have a happy world. And man, do we need that today.
Amen, sister. We certainly do. We certainly do, Ollie. When you were talking about the bees and the story about the bees, I had this kind of image, this mental image of you being chased by bees for a long time, and you were the one swatting them away, and they were kind of like trying to tap you on the shoulder, going, no, this is what you want to do. This is something that really is going to change your life forever.
Yeah. And what's funny is, I get laughed at, of course, when I say this story, not just the story, but when I talk about bees. And I can't, and now my close friends and family notice it, that bees do come and will just sit on my hand or like right by me. And sometimes when I was writing, there would be a bee that would come and sit on me. And I have some crazy stories of bees. I had a bee's nest right under my kitchen window that actually was like one of those killer hornet nests. Had no idea. And one of them got in my house, and
Ooh.
it got stuck in the window. I had no idea it was there. No idea. And I was just like, oh, it's a bee. I know it's like probably like a yellow jacket of some sorts,
Mhm.
but I didn't know. And I could feel there was energy coming from this bee. And I was like, there's something going on. And he couldn't get him in or out. And I stayed up like half the night talking to this bee, and I left it water in like the little
Mhm.
I had a little container. I put some water, and I'm like, you're here. I believe that the bee was coming to protect me, to make a presence of,
Mhm.
I'm here for you. But I could see this bee like breathing like and I felt
Oh.
so bad. And I was like, I want to help you. And I could, the fact that this bee did not move at all,
Mhm.
I felt was a sign that there was a level of protecting me, and getting a message to me, which really made a big game change. And then the next day when the gardeners came, they didn't know anything about that at all, because in the morning I said a prayer to the bee, and I was like, I am grateful that you came. I'm grateful you're here, but please know that your message has been received and you're free to go. And in the morning, the bee was gone.
Mm.
And I came home, and the gardeners were outside right at my window. And they're like, oh my God, we just found a killer, like that killer hornet that was going around that summer. And I was like, oh my God, that bee was in my house.
Oh,
But,
geez.
but,
Well, and it didn't harm you.
it didn't harm me. And that was, I think, the big sign of, you're being protected and you're being loved.
Mhm.
And I believe in that. And it's signs like that that you sometimes need to see, of like,
Mhm.
I'm getting through this, and I
Mhm.
have love and protection. So
Mhm. Well, I would have to think that one of the major validations that you got right from the get-go was writing 3 books in 9 months.
yes.
I mean, I'm still blown away, but I can't get over that. It just amazes me that when you did that and you ended up, okay, in 9 months, you've got 3 books. Did your family and friends know that you were doing this, or did you kind of do it on the QT just to make sure that there's, just in case you fell flat on your face, you didn't have to fess up to anybody?
No, I was very vocal about it. And um, everybody was highly intrigued by what I was doing. And of course, there's the dream crushers, which is a huge piece of like,
Mm-hmm.
that's so cute. When are you getting a real job?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I, nobody really getting it. And then there's the people that would call you and are like, you have to do this, and you have to be a best-selling author, and this is what you are. And it's like, I didn't ask you for help. I appreciate it. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. But what I really got out of it in every angle is people care about you, and
Mm-hmm.
people love you, but people really value your journey. And
Mm-hmm.
if they needed me to do that, because then they could see for themselves that doors can open. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I try to teach people is, everybody, when you do something radical like that, people are looking at you because they are so scared for themselves that they couldn't do it. And
Right.
they want to watch you because they need you to be successful. And
Mm-hmm.
that is part of what it is there is critics because they only can see and feel and hear their own fears.
Mm-hmm.
And when they can watch you fight through that and be something with that,
Mm-hmm.
it changes who they are. And that's part of the pollination of like, I'm doing this and I don't care what you think. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care how you feel about it. I don't care if you don't want to be my friend anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to change what I'm doing.
So I really want to ask you, how many people told you that you were actually bat crap crazy when you quit your job?
I don't know how to count that high.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. Did anybody come back later and say, "Oh my gosh, I was really wrong about that"?
Well, I think now I'm at a place where it's been years, since I've been on this journey. And definitely, my family is like that. There's a lot of and then again, they don't mean it to be mean,
Mhm.
but it's like, well, that was cute. Like, so when when you're getting a real job and when you get back in people's face and you're like, I'm not, this is my real
Mhm.
job. I have a job. And I realize that it's just a lot of people in my world lived in 9 to 5 jobs and they can't
Mhm.
understand what I do. And I like to write at night. So if I'm someplace during the day, they're like, see, you don't work. And it's like, but yeah. And that was a phase to get through of that crushing of but you don't really work, and
Yeah.
I just saw a friend
Yeah. You
that
you
was,
don't you don't really work.
yeah,
However, you managed to write 3 books in 9 months, but you really weren't working.
that's not a job.
Yeah.
So that's back to, the phase one of when, when that came into my, like, right in college. Actually, I had a professor who told me I should be a writer. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do with that. But,
Mhm.
and, a few times I was like, I want to write, like, but I don't know. And I
Mhm.
almost left my job in my 20s to write, but then I was shut down of like, you
Mhm.
can't do that. You have to bring in cash. And
Right.
I was okay. No, it's not going to work. It's the same people that, were like, no, 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 no. This was cute. And now, what
Yeah.
are you going to do what happens if you can't pay your bills? I'm like, then I can't pay my bills.
Mhm.
And, you
I'll
just,
deal with it then. Yeah.
yeah, but there's a level of what that everything means. And, going back to that financial, scaling of, when you're here and you're here, just because you have money here doesn't mean
Mhm.
that the fears at both ways aren't the same, or the
Mhm.
challenges feel the same. Because when you have money, you have to do stuff with it. And when you don't
Mhm.
have money, you have to do stuff with that.
Mhm.
So it's the same pain at both levels. And
Mhm.
once is a pain, it's still something you have to manage. It's still something
Mhm.
you have to deal with. The opportunities are different, but the
Mhm.
feelings, emotions, and the work that you have to put into it are the same.
Mhm.
So learning both and everything in between is for me how to help other people. There are ways if you don't have money to deal with that. You can't pay your phone bill. Well, there's government programs of how you could pay your phone bill, how you could pay
Mhm.
your utility bills, how you can put yourself on a budget to not overspend and not realizing you're overspending. There's
Mhm.
ways to put money in the bank. There's ways to use apps that give you points, that give you
Mhm.
cash back. There's credit cards. There's so many things that you can learn and you
Mhm.
can do it. And I've seen people that were making money that was so minimal and
Mhm.
saving and getting to their next dream just because
Mhm.
they value their money instead of being afraid of money. And that
Mhm.
is where people get stuck and walk away.
Mhm.
And just learning that if you don't learn the valuable lessons on the bottom of the value of a dollar, the value of how to respect it, the value of what you can do with your dollars instead of living in fear of like, I got to pay this and I got to do this,
Mhm.
and putting money away and making smart investments and doing smart things with money. When you make money, all you're going to see is, I'm afraid that I'm never going to have it again. And you're going to
Mhm.
spend it. That's why they always say winning the lottery is the biggest curse,
Mhm.
because people don't know how to deal with it.
Mhm.
So the money is not always the biggest blessing. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, it just seems like there's so many emotions and typically not healthy ones around money and finances. And fear, I think, as you said, is probably the biggest one. And that's why there are so many millionaires and billionaires who just want to keep chasing after the dollar, and good for them. But it's almost like, how much do you really need before you're either happy or comfortable or fulfilled? It's not about the money, it's about the journey.
Yeah. And look at all these big money people that are just sad single men now,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
So you have money that doesn't keep you warm at night, that doesn't have a conversation with
Mhm.
you. And who are the real people around you? That's not living. It's, you have stuff. What does
Mm-hmm.
stuff do for you? And to be like, oh, I'm really rich. Well, I don't want anything to do with you.
Right.
I really don't. And I've told off people that, other people would criticize me of, well, he's, a big CEO of this, or I'm like, yeah, but you know what? He's rude and nasty, and
Mm-hmm.
he should be put in his place, because you don't have the right to treat anybody like that. And if
Right.
you think you're going to wave dollars in front of me because it's a good business deal, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want, if that's how you're going to treat this situation, I don't want to do business with you.
Mm-hmm. So
You know,
how long have you been the dream coach and the dream pollinator? I mean, since the time that you left your position as a COO. So how many
Mhm.
years has that been?
That was back in like 2017.
Okay, so it's actually been a while.
Yeah, yes. And I just really labeled my program in the past few months as really defining it as the Dream Pollination Program, because I was
Mm-hmm.
working on projects. And I'm like, I really need to put it in a place where people can understand it. And I get
Mm-hmm.
if people don't still understand, and that's fine. I,
Mm-hmm.
would rather you reach out to me and let's have a conversation, because I do like to customize it for what you need. And the program, I say has 4 seasons. You're
Mm-hmm.
much further than you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
You may not need all 4 seasons, and there's no like set start point. You might
Mm-hmm.
be what I say season 3, and you're like, oh, I got to start at season 1. It's like, no, you don't really. You may
Mm-hmm.
not even need that season. You
Mm-hmm.
might just need like help in season 3, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might need all 4, and every level's different. Of let's get you, your beginning needs to be, let's make sure that you are okay in these areas of your finances, of good relationships, of
Mm-hmm.
understanding where you are in your career. And if you're, there's also other levels within that, but if those are the top ones, you're like, I'm good here, like that's not
Mm-hmm.
where I need help, and then why we're not going to waste time there.
Right.
We're just going to make sure you're in the checklist of good and everything is fine, and let's move to the next phase. So
Do you
yeah,
work mostly with women or do you have male clients as well?
I I have actually worked with more men than women. Women are more open and vocal to say, help me, I need it, and just like
Mm-hmm.
throw all their cards on the table. Where
Mm-hmm.
men, there's a level of ego of, I'm embarrassed to be in this spot because I shouldn't be here at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a little harder for them to admit or get to that next place. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be an uninviting person of, I only work with women.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to work with people that are in that place, because their fear is so strong that it could really
Mm-hmm.
hurt you. And I
Mm-hmm.
just want to be as inviting as possible of, this is not a pain here to be hurt or judged or prodded of how dare you. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is your situation, and everybody in the world has a situation, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's, let's get you further, come on, you could do
Mm-hmm.
it. And I some of my clients are college or right out of college, and then some of my clients are in their 60s, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I just wanted to get to that next level, like why?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that hard
Mm-hmm.
to sit and talk with somebody like me, that I've been through every step of the ladder, I've been in many
Mm-hmm.
different industries, I understand what it looks like from a manager's perspective, from a company's perspective, and from being in that seat. So I
Mm-hmm.
see both ways, and I just want everybody to succeed. So I just want to be as open and inviting to either men or women of, totally can feel it. I understand what that looks like, and to get through that first level of fear and get you to your
Mm-hmm.
dreams. That's
And I just want to highlight something that you said at the very beginning of the recording, because it was like all I could, and I wrote this down. It was so smart of you, because you realized that at one point that this was really going to impact your health if you stayed on the path that you were already on. It's like you're going to get a heart attack, you're going to get sick. And it basically does have an incredible impact on your physical and your mental health when you're struggling like that in a career, or you're just not in a place where you're really happy or fulfilled. And it was like, that was so smart that you figured that out, that, you could really end up being physically, either ill or, devastated, from not following your dream. So I think that that's a really important point to bring up, because when you're not on the right path, your body is definitely going to be telling you and giving you signals. And if you don't listen to it, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah. And I know, unfortunately, more than one person that stress is what that took them over the edge. And, I watched a very good friend of mine, her husband, they just had a brand new baby. They were like not even 40 at that point. And he was so worried and stressed out about his job and what he was doing. He had a heart attack and he died. And then I had another
Wow.
friend, same thing. It was like the stress and like living on coffee and like not eating right, and just not sleeping. And I was like, oh my God, like those lessons of my
Mm-hmm.
friends. And,
Mm-hmm.
I watched it when I was younger. I watched, you'd always be like, oh, that guy died too young. And it is a lot of men in that
Mm-hmm.
place. But I've seen women too. I had a good friend that was so stressed out by her job. She had a stroke and she wasn't even 40 years old.
Oh my God.
And it's like, this
Yeah.
stress level is a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there's doctors and there's so many, but you know what, you're afraid to walk in that door because you're afraid. And you have to understand, like, you have to walk in a door, but at the same time, if you're talking to somebody that's outside of your world,
Yeah.
that's gets it and is like, this is some simple things to take care of yourself, to evaluate yourself, to put yourself in good health, so you can get past that fear level to walk into that doctor's office and know what your blood work looks like, know where you
Mm-hmm.
are in a healthy way. So many people are afraid to go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's great that we have the World Wide Web, but at the same time, it could scare the daylights out of you to look up
Yeah.
one symptom. And then you all of a sudden have it in your head. I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. And then all of a sudden you have it. And you're like, see, I
Yep.
told you. You have to
Yep.
understand, you've conditioned yourself to have it. You
Mm-hmm.
wished yourself sick instead of wishing yourself better. And
Mm-hmm.
once you can change a lot of that mentality of
Mm-hmm.
attracting the negative, instead track the positive.
Mm-hmm.
Women are the worst at, oh my gosh, like I ate a donut and I have to go to the gym, and it's like, oh my God, you ate a donut. Did you enjoy it? Enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the joy from it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have a donut every day, but enjoy it and
Mm-hmm.
understand why that hurts you and bothers you. If you're not having a good relationship with food or what you're putting in your body's going to do something with that. It's going to do
Mm-hmm.
something, reject it because it's afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that high anxiety of everything, you can't wait to pile on, because it's you can't feel the good, so you just invite the bad and you don't realize
Mm-hmm.
how much you do. And that is really dangerous and harmful to
Mm-hmm.
your system. It
Yeah,
really
because
is.
once your brain keeps hearing that message over and over and over again, it's like a big computer, and it just logs it in. And eventually, you keep telling yourself these things and you will become it. So
Yeah.
it's so important to be careful what you tell yourself.
Yeah. Feed good thoughts for sure.
Yeah. And the one thing I just love, I'm going way back at the very beginning of the recording, but it was just really, really made an impact on me when you said, yeah, you were sold the dream. Sold
Yeah.
the dream and bought it hook, line, and sinker. And you do that because, oh, that's what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to act like a grown-up. And then you realize this is it, and I'm stuck with this.
Yeah. It's not my dream, it's somebody else's dream. And I was told the dreams that I wanted would happen getting, to
Yeah.
these levels. And, I, there is no mistakes. there is no coincidences. And, it always prepares you for what is next.
Mhm.
And God always gives you a million chances. You didn't disappoint God. You tell yourself that you disappointed yourself, but you learn things and you got through things, and there's things you're never going to do again. And you can overcome. You can
Mhm.
overcome all those things. And that's a lot of getting rid of the old.
Mm.
There's a lot of doing that and conditioning conversations in your head and shutting down the negative thoughts. It's a lot, but it's not that hard. It's just the initial work
Mhm.
of that reprogramming.
So let's let this segue into your books, because your books are inspirational.
Yes, thank you.
And you've actually, okay, so once again, I'm going back on those 3 books in 9 months. It blows me away. And you're working on your fourth one, or your fourth one is completed?
Well, the fourth one is basically done. I needed to make a lot of changes because I didn't like one of the directions one of the characters was going
Mm.
into. So I needed to kind of fix it and move it around. And so I just have some plugging in to do. And I am speaking with a publisher that would really change my game of publishing and
Mhm.
work on getting it into a best-selling sellers
Mhm.
list, which I'm excited about. So
Mhm.
I'm eager to get it done, but there is other things on the plate that sometimes get in the way. But
Of
it
course.
is it is my goal to have it done before the end of the year, so I better get hustling because we're pretty close.
And you also have a blog.
Yes.
Okay, so I did go onto your website, but I didn't have a chance to take a tour of your blog. How often do you post, and are those writings inspirational as well?
Yes, I keep it as inspirational posts, and I make them very personal, of stories of things that happen and things that are relatable, and
Mm-hmm.
how I got through things or how I looked at things once upon a time, and how to turn it around. And some stories are funny, and I try to really, I have a very sarcastic humor. And now that I live, people don't think that of me because they're like,
Oh,
oh, you're pretty religious. And I'm like, I still am a real person. Just because I'm a religious person doesn't mean I
well,
don't lots of laugh.
yeah, I hate to break it to those people who say that, because God has an incredible sense of humor.
I know and I tell people, they're like, when people ask, when I talk to God, what does he look like? And I'm like, he looks like a combination of Ted Lasso and Santa Claus, like on break. Like a cup of coffee, and is like, what up, dude? What do you got?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
And my last blog that I wrote is actually about somebody I used to work with, and he was a big stressor in my life at one point. And he was just not a nice person. He was very ugly to people, like how he treated
Mm.
people. And there was a point where could have had to be separated, like because we were like literally in fist fights. It was bad. And he he didn't live the nicest lifestyle, but
Mm-hmm.
he realized at one point in his life he needed to change and he needed to turn around. And he did find God, and then he became a really nice person. And I mean, he still was at the level of sarcasm, but he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't mean and cruel.
Mm-hmm.
And he became a good friend of mine.
Wow.
He passed away, and there was a level of, this is what I do, and this is my job. And
Mm-hmm.
we always were worried about his eating because he would like scarf food down. And I don't know how he died at all. I don't, because
Mm-hmm.
I had lost touch with him. But I feel like he's a great story of, you know you could turn it around from not being
Mm-hmm.
a good person to being a good person. Somebody that I was like, why is he in my life? And he helped me out through some really hard
Mm-hmm.
situations just because we were friends. And he knew what I was going through at that time. I
Mm,
was in a horrible breakup, and I had left the job that we worked at together to go work on a new job that was a startup. And, I
mhm.
got there, and a few months later, they went bankrupt and everybody had to say goodbye. So I was going through a lot. And I literally was drowning, and he
Jeez.
called me at like 4 o'clock in the morning, not knowing that I was in that moment drowning. And he's just like, I could just feel that you need a friend right now. And for
Mm,
someone to feel that you need a friend at 4 a.m.,
yeah.
there's so many connections. So, it's those wild and crazy stories of, why is this person in my life? And one day you'll find out.
Mhm,
And I'm sad that he passed away, but I know that, he's still with me, because he's
mhm.
still he sends me so many sarcastic messages. And, the last time I saw him was in the city, and I was much taller than he was. And we used to call him Fatty because of his eating style.
Mhm.
And he just like screaming at me and comes running over to me. And he's like, "Oh, you're still short." And I'm like, "Well, you're still fat. Great. Gotta go." And I hadn't seen him in so many years. And we just separated our ways. And I was like, I think that's the last time I'm going to see him. So,
Oh.
yeah. So, but he sends me lots of messages,
Mhm,
which is great. And, God always puts the right people in your path, and you learn so
mhm,
much. So I've learned a lot from him. And so that was my last blog post.
mhm.
And
I love the fact that you still get messages and for those out there who are a little skeptical, those little visits and little messages are truly a gift. And they sometimes come out of nowhere. I get messages from my dad a lot.
oh, beautiful.
A lot. Yeah, I did from my mom for they both died in November 2010. They died 19 days apart actually. It was the
Oh,
craziest thing in the world. And my mother right after she passed away, she went first and she was actually with me for a long time, like through February. It was like 2 or 3 months that she was there and I could really feel her. And I'm the one that took care of her in hospice and stuff. And then, my dad, when he passed away, it was like, boom, he was gone. But he would keep coming back. And it's been a while since we're coming on an anniversary. I do expect him to be popping in any day now. So, but it is funny. I would hear his voice even. I'd get in my car and I could smell, his scent. And it
mm,
was like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? And I could
yeah.
even, he used to call me Skinny, even, when I wasn't. And that was his nickname for me was Skinny. And I'd hear his voice going, Skinny, watch it, watch it. And I'm like, okay, I'm watching it. I don't know what's going to happen here. But yeah, so it is kind of funny. You get those messages and those little visits, and it's like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's really hard to say that to people when they don't experience it. And
Mm,
especially when someone super close to them passes away.
yeah.
And I'm like, but you can have fun with it. Like, you can really, I mean, I have my godfather died in 1984, and he still sends me jokes. And I'm like,
Mhm.
really? Right now? Like, right now? you know? But he, it's like, all right, well, I know he's here, and I know that he's sending me messages, and keep asking for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're still with you. It's just you can't physically see them, but they still here.
Mhm.
And getting a smell from somebody, that's a very unique, that doesn't, not everybody is in tune with that as much as you see signs and symbols. So that's a really good, strong sign that
Mhm.
they're close, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful, really
Yeah.
beautiful. So good for you on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's there are always signs and symbols. And my friends make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, how many hearts did you see today?" Because I to post them all to Instagram, and I still try to, but there's my signs now are so much deeper and stronger
Mhm.
that it would be really hard to explain all of them. And I see a lot of faces, and I get a lot of messages through numbers, and
Mhm.
those are hard to explain
Yeah.
to everybody. They become so deeper and personal, but yeah, keep asking, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, Debbie, this has been such a treat talking to you. How can people find you? Where can how can they get a hold of you? I love the fact that you said, what was it? Everybody's different, and some people might not understand what you do, but they can contact you, get a hold of you through the website. Give us all your links, all the ways that we can connect. Of course, they'll be in the show notes, but I do like my guests to be able to vocalize it themselves.
Oh, great. Yes, I'd love to offer to all of your listeners a free download of my last novel, Soul Meets Body.
Wow.
And I'll also send you the link as well to just book a direct meeting with me. We can do a consultation, but you can find me. I try to make it very, very simple. I'm on all of social media at Debby Krusz. It's DebbyKrusz. So that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube. I'm working on uploading a lot of my videos to YouTube now. And also my website is just as simple, debbykrusz.com. Again, DebbyKrusz.com.
Excellent. So you have given us an awful lot to think about, but can you give the audience like one final pearl of wisdom or piece of advice or one thing to think about before we sign off?
Yeah, you are here for a reason. You're divinely and uniquely made for your sole purpose, not to be judged or to be compared to somebody else. You are unique and you are beautiful, and don't ever forget that.
Amen. That is a perfect place to sign off. Debbie, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Love talking to you.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl, so much. I really appreciate it.
And everybody, thank you for listening. As always, I really appreciate you. And do subscribe to the podcast and do share it with your friends, especially this has been such a fantastic episode. And Debbie has certainly given us an awful lot to think about. And just remember that you are divinely made and that you have a purpose in life. And don't listen to the naysayers because they might want to steal your joy. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.